I was literally thinking that as I went through. I'm like, do we have a picture of you or your house on here anyway? Okay. Well, there you have it.
Okay, I think
And
that
we
should
didn't even
do
hear
it.
your comments. So
Is that, are we good now?
I think so.
All right, well, let me know if we're not. Okay, well. Okay. So the arrows work too. That's always good. So we're going to learn a little bit about Sugar Hollow, who we are in the community, how long we've been around, things like that. Recent advancements in renewable technology, a lot of things around battery storage, a lot of things we've learned since Hurricane Helene in this market, of course, as well. We'll talk about the impacts of solar and battery on home prices, on real estate in general, how helping clients purchase or sell a home, what we can do to help from the Sugar Hollow side if there's solar involved in that transaction in any way, shape, or form, or if they might want to talk to somebody about solar while they're going through a transaction. And then just, overall, what's going on these days in the marketplace. So a little bit about Sugar Hollow, what sets us apart. Has anybody heard of Sugar Hollow before this meeting other than you, Mary? So people have heard of us, right? We've been around for over 15 years in this market. So we are the largest locally owned solar company in Western North Carolina. Locally owned meaning by Doug Ager and the Ager family. If anybody sees the signs for Jamie Ager running for Congress, that's Doug's brother, right? So we are a pretty well-known family within this marketplace of Doug and his family. And they've been around this market for over 100 years. Doug and his cousin, Phelps Clark, started this company 15 years ago as an experiment of trying to bring sustainability to the mountains. That's something I care about a lot. I've been here for a little over 4 years. My background goes through a lot of different industries. My MBA was in corporate sustainability, so I did a lot with business consulting and such on triple bottom line approach. I do most of the commercial work within Sugar Hollow, but I've also been a residential sales rep. I work with a lot of the builders in town. I work with a lot of the new construction. So personally, from that side, I get involved in both sides of residential and commercial as well with Sugar Hollow. We have a 4.9 Google rating. That's not that easy to do in solar. It's not that easy to do anywhere, but we have that in solar. And we have what we call a net promoter score, which is another way that people can evaluate a business online of over 85%. And typical solar NPS scores nationwide are around 30%, maybe 40%. So being, we're 60% above the average for solar companies. Why is that? We're not in this for just profit. We're not here to just make money, to just be in here for the short term, take advantage of a trend and make money off of that and then leave the market. We've had a lot of companies do that here. And what ends up happening is most of those people who go solar with them end up calling us. We end up adopting their system to help maintain it, to help upgrade it, to help sometimes even get it working. We've had people call us and they had a solar array for 2 years and didn't realize that it was not even producing electricity because nobody ever interconnected it. Now, things like that happen. That's not who we are. We are a community-based business here in Western North Carolina, and that's where we're aiming to stay. We have on-staff service team, which sounds, well, sure you do. Nobody else does in this market. We have a full service team, a service manager, a service phone number. So if you have a system, whether we installed it or not, and this is where it gets into real estate transactions, or if you're involved in a transaction, what can happen there is call us. Even if we didn't install it, we can come out, we can inspect the system, we can take a look at it, evaluate what's going on. So having an on-site service team is why we do a lot of these conversations, why we engage a lot with real estate, why we engage a lot with builders as well, because we have something that's unique in this marketplace. We are a certified B Corporation. Anybody know what that means? Right. So B Corporation is a different form of ownership. It's not an S Corp or a C Corp or an LLC. There are a lot of rules and regulations for what it takes to be a B Corporation. Things like the CEO can only make a certain percentage more than the lowest paid employee. You have to be living wage certified, things like that. We pay our installers well. We keep everything on staff. We do our own installations. We do our own service work. We do our own design work. We do it all in-house so we can control it and make sure the quality is what we want it to be. That also allows us to be a member of Amicus, which is a cooperative of solar companies nationwide that are almost exclusively B corporations. So it's a benefit corporation. We have to give back. We have to do community events. We have to do educational seminars, things like this. That's part of how we can keep our B Corp certification, because we give back to the community, we take care of our employees and all of the stakeholders involved in the company. So just some things about us. With Amicus, there's about 100 members, and being a member of Amicus gives us a couple of advantages. One, we buy together as a group. So Little Sugar Hollow in Asheville, North Carolina is now buying with the addition of 100 other businesses out there. So we can be very competitive on price. We can buy in quantity, buy in bulk, things like that through these cooperative agreements. In addition to that, we have the support of calling a member in Boulder, Colorado and saying, we've got a commercial project we've never seen before. Have you done anything like this? And they immediately get back to us, help us walk through that project, and we can learn from each other. So those are some of the benefits there. We also have these preferred provider programs where we engage with builders, with roofers, with electricians, with real estate offices, and say, if you work with us and send us leads, we're going to give you X, Y, or Z back as a partnership. I know with real estate, there's certain things we can and can't do with agents specifically, other things we can do with your office, other things we can do in a transaction to help, or with your buyer or your seller of your home, even if we can't do it directly with you as an agent. So all of these things are why we're here today. So we'll talk a bit about the future of renewable energy. We have kind of a fun little quote, which is, it's always the best time to go solar, but right now is definitely the best time to go solar. So we'll talk a bit more about that and why that is. But right now, it could probably never be more true with all of the changes that are going on, not just in our economy, in our local market, with Duke, at the state level, at the federal level. There's a lot of things with solar that are not going to be available soon in this market, so that we will definitely talk about. One of those, rising energy costs. Everybody hears about this. We are definitely talking about this. We've heard from approvals with the North Carolina Utility Commission, we're looking at least 18% increases over the next 3 years in this market. We've had 14% increases in the last 2 years in this market. That's the residential level, which is what we're talking about today. Commercial level is completely different and separate, and sometimes way higher, sometimes lower than that. But energy is going up. Duke keeps raising their rates. They keep saying it's infrastructure. They at one point said it's because they didn't hedge their bets correctly on natural gas costs in the equity markets. Who knows? There's a lot of different reasons they're raising rates. We have old infrastructure in this market, and not just here in Asheville, but across North Carolina. They're trying to upgrade that. So all of these things are leading to rising costs, and that's not even talking about the all of the big data markets and the data centers they're building across here that are raising utility rates for people across this country. So we won't talk about that specifically because we're here in Asheville, but it's coming, and it's a part of why rates are going up nationwide. Also, every study that we read has different numbers, but the numbers that we work with, and then we'll talk about this local market, Energy Sage, which is a big website out there in the solar world, says that homes with solar sell for about 5 to 10% more than a home without solar. In this market, it trends towards the high end of that. Now, if you have solar and you have a battery, and you're kind of your own little island, it can be 10 to 15% higher value. But the great thing is in North Carolina, I know they're trying to change this, but as of right now, they cannot increase the taxable value of your home by adding solar. So if you add solar and you add more value to your home and you can sell it for more, you can things like that, it cannot change the taxable value of your home by adding solar. Again, they're trying to get rid of that in the state Congress, but hopefully they're not going to anytime soon. So those are just important things when real estate is involved in a transaction with solar, and it gets into loans and leases and things like that and how to price a home, all those different elements when it comes to a home with solar. Batteries. Before Helene, we probably attached a battery to 30% of all of the solar installations that we had. Today, we attach a battery to 120% of all of the homes that we put solar. Because a lot of people who went solar before Helene have called us and said, please put a battery in my home. And almost everybody who goes solar today is adding a battery with it, at least one, sometimes 2, 3, 4, up to 12 batteries we just did on one home. So why is that? The number one reason why batteries are important is for backup. Battery backup is important. We learned that. I live in Weaverville on top of a mountain. I had no power for 21 days during Helene. I didn't have a battery, didn't have solar, have way too many trees on top of a mountain to put solar on. I'm now getting a battery installed in my house, even without solar, so I have something as a backup. But that's the number one reason. People put on a battery. It's a better, more affordable way to do a generator, and it's maintenance free. It's warranted for 10 or 15 years, depending on the battery brand. So there's a lot of good reasons to add a battery versus a generator when you're looking purely for backup, for battery backup. So when the grid goes down and you have solar, because all solar in this market is tied into the grid, it's tied into your meter. So if your meter is not functioning because we're in a power outage, that solar cannot go from the meter and flow into your home and power your home. Some people don't understand that part of the technology, but once you add a battery, you become an island on itself. So now the solar comes in, it feeds the battery bypasses the grid completely. Doesn't matter if the grid is not functioning, and it powers your electrical panel and everything on the panel that the battery is connected to. So now you're able to produce power from your solar, store it in your battery, use it in your home, and you can function even without the grid. And we don't talk about off-grid systems because of the way everything works here with Duke and with the utility network. But so we're not helping people go off grid. We still want you to be connected with Duke. We still want you to be connected to the grid. It's just smart. It's just good economics. But when the grid goes down, you are independent if you had a battery. So yeah, we sold and installed almost 600 batteries last year, an enormous number of batteries last year after Helene. So really changed our company around it, and we learned a lot. And now even with commercial buildings, with businesses, they are adding batteries. There's incentives coming out for businesses who want to add a battery now that didn't apply before. And Duke has caught on to this. So if you add a battery, you can get a bill credit every single month still if you add a battery right now that takes $50 to $60 off your electric bill, because you attach that to Duke, and Duke can kind of pull that energy usage every once in a while from you and give it to your neighbor's house, and it helps them with grid stability. So there are a lot of different great reasons. Batteries are a huge part of the market we live in today. So why are they considering battery? Talk a little bit more about these different elements. There's no moving parts. There's no yearly maintenance. There's no oil replacement. It's maintenance free. There's long-term warranties. It's security. You know, we saw over a 200% increase in battery demand. The other thing that's coming that we'll talk about a little bit later is we're changing rate structures in North Carolina for people who have solar. Not for everybody, for people who have solar. So if you have solar, you probably just got a message from Duke recently. Did you get a message from Duke? That they're going to change your rate structure on your solar rider. So we'll talk a bit more about it, but yes. Did you get it yesterday? Okay. So that's coming. We'll be responding with a message here probably later this week, maybe as early as tomorrow, with what that means for our clients and how we're going to help anybody in the marketplace with that sort of rate change switch. But it's coming. We're switching from just net metering 1.0, which is before, to net metering 2.0 we're on right now, which isn't quite as good, but still pretty good, to time of use, which is very different when it comes to solar. The good news is most of the rest of the country's on time of use. South Carolina is, California, Arizona, the big mature markets are all on time of use. It's not going to change dramatically and kill solar, but it just gives you little different things you have to look at if you want to go solar. Batteries become far more important. So why do buyers pay more for a home with solar? We talk about 5, 10, even 12% increases. Here's the main reasons. You're selling a home with guaranteed cost savings for usually life. You know, solar lasts for 25 years under warranty, but that doesn't mean that in 25 years that panel is going to stop producing. The warranty on a solar panel says that it will still produce 90% as much electricity in 25 years that it does from day one. So it's not in 25 years the system is going to conk out, you're going to produce nothing. It's still producing 90%. So the life of solar should be much longer than 25 years. So you're buying a house with solar, even if it was installed 5 years ago, with guaranteed cost savings for a long period of time, off their electric bill, off of maintenance of a potential generator, different things like that you're looking at. Energy independence. Since we do have outages, and everybody you talk to will say we're going to get more outages as time goes on. People are using more electricity. We're having worse storms. We're having more storms. We're having wildfires. The climate is changing. We're there. It's going to happen someday. We're in it. We're living it right now. So with that being said, have energy independence. Make sure a home you sell has a battery, has a generator, has some form of means that they can continue to operate as a home, even if the power in the grid goes down for short and for long periods of time. It also just shows, hey, I put solar on. I care about my house. I care about the quality of my home. I care overall about investing in my house. So they probably have also taken care of the rest of the house. If they're looking to add solar and make that kind of investment, you're probably looking at a really nice home. Immediate benefits, no upfront costs. You are buying a house, you're inheriting the solar system. You don't have the cost of ownership to buy it or finance it. It's a part of the transaction. And then there's definitely been a growing market awareness, again, here, really after Helene, but even before that, of why solar makes sense, that it is cost effective. We're no longer in a world like 10 years ago when there was no payback, like financial payback for going solar. Most days we see an 8 to 10 year payback for people who go solar. Maybe it's 12 to 15 years for solar plus a battery. And on some projects that we're talking about leases and what that's doing to the market, there's a 100% immediate payback with no upfront investment. So those are really interesting ways to go solar right now in this marketplace with all the challenges we see. So how can you talk to your clients? Gets more into, again, you're in a transaction, there's solar on the house, you're helping somebody buy it, you're helping somebody sell it. Here's some just general terms. And again, don't worry about writing this down. You can take pictures of it. It's all going to be recorded. It's all going to get sent to you. But a quick thing, KW is different from KWH. I learned that when I got into the solar industry. KW is kilowatts. So that really defines the size of the system. Very simple calculation. 18 panels, 435 watts per panel. That's the type of wattage per panel we have today. Means you have a 7.83 kW system. So when you're selling a house, you can say I have a 10 kW system in the listing. That's going to make sense to people that understand it. The second number is, and it's not written here, but kilowatt hours. That's just the kW size as an effect over time, which means how much is that kilowatt system producing of electricity over time. That comes into a lot of things. You'd think, oh, probably 7,830 kilowatt hours. No, comes into shade. Do we have trees? Do we have not trees? Is it on the north facing roof, the south facing roof, the east facing roof? How old are the panels? Have they degraded a bit? So sometimes we'll build a 7.83 kW system that produces 12,000 kilowatt hours in a year. Sometimes it produces 5,000 kilowatt hours in a year. Those are numbers you're going to want to know. Those are numbers you're going to want to be brought into the calculation. And again, if you need that number, you pick up the phone and you call Sugar Hollow. We can get into the system. We can take a look at the inverter. We can find out how much it's producing in any given year. And we can also pretty quickly probably calculate the KW size if you don't know it and if the homeowner doesn't know it. Battery size is measured in kilowatt hours. That means what you're producing on the roof with KW becomes kilowatt hours. It gets stored in that battery. Whatever that battery storage is can calculate how long can I operate just off of my battery if the power goes down. Again, it's going to come down to what are you using? Are you running HVAC? Are you charging an electric vehicle? Are you just running your lights? There's a functionality in there that we can walk you through. But a lot of people ask us every single day, I want to add a battery. How long can I operate when the power goes down? The answer is, let's talk about it. What do you want to run? Are you going to go and manually switch things in your electrical panel? Do you want it to run everything on your panel? What do you set your air conditioning at? Is it summer or winter? Is it cloudy or not cloudy? There's a lot of calculations that go into that. So to really be an expert in the transaction, feel free to call us and use us. We can help you be an expert and really know what you're talking about and give that buyer or seller a really great answer. Those are things that I'm happy to help with at any time. System components, the inverter. The inverter is the part that turns the solar on the roof into electricity that's usable in your outlets. That's the inverter. And then the solar panel, solar modules, or whatever you want to call it, that's the panel itself. We call it glass. There's a million terms in the solar world for what those are, but it's the solar panel. Net metering versus net metering time of use. This is where we get a little into some of the changes that are coming. The overall concept of solar in North Carolina, including today, is that we have something called net metering. Almost everyone who has solar in this market right now has net metering. What that means is that you're producing electricity during the day. You're using a portion of that, depending on what loads are running in your house. So you're using a portion of that. The other portion then goes to charge your battery if you have one. And then after you're using it, whatever you're using in your outlets in your home at that moment, whatever is going into storage, your battery is full. Now what happens to it? It gets offshot to the grid. So it means you're now sending electricity to the grid. You're a producer, you're a coal plant, or whatever you want to call it. As you are sending it to the grid, Duke or the utility company you work with monitors that. We can also help you monitor that to make sure they're doing it correctly. But as we're monitoring that, Duke is going to give you credits. So if you send 2,000 kilowatt hours in a month to the grid that you didn't use, that you didn't need to charge your battery, Duke's going to give you 2,000 kilowatt hours of electricity within that bill month, not calendar month, but within that bill cycle month for free. So if you used 5,000 kilowatt hours at night when solar was not being produced, you didn't pull it from your battery, you off-sent 2,000 to the grid, they're only going to bill you for 3,000. That's net metering in a nutshell. I know, and feel free to ask questions. I can clarify that in other ways, but yeah, you're sharing it. Now, here's what happens with time of use, which is what we're about to change to. And I'll put an asterisk there we're going to come back to in a minute, but here's what we're basically saying with that. We're changing in January of 2027 for anyone who's not locked in currently or by the end of this year to net metering. You will be grandfathered for 10 to 15 years if you lock in before the end of this year. Or if you currently have solar, you can lock in and be grandfathered for up to 15 years. If you don't, we're going to switch to time of use. Time of use is very different. Now Duke has a peak and off-peak time of the day. In the winter, that means in the morning from like 6 to 9 a.m. is peak. They're going to charge you 24 cents a kilowatt hour, for example. And then when you're producing solar from 10 to 5, they're going to call that off-peak hours. They're going to charge you 8 cents a kilowatt hour. I'm making up numbers. These are not exact yet. But a much lower rate because they know you don't need a lot of electricity during those times. You're producing it yourself. And then you have the other hours of the day, kind of the off peak, but not on peak hours where they might have a third rate structure. Right now, so far, we've heard in Duke territory, we're just going to have two. On peak, really high rate, off peak, not as high a rate. Some areas have a mid peak, which is a whole different calculation. But what that means is if you're producing electricity and you're selling it to the grid, they're giving you a credit at 8 cents a kilowatt hour. Then when you need it back, they're charging you 24 cents a kilowatt hour. So they're really not giving you the same benefit that we have today, where it's a 1-for-1, doesn't matter when you produced it, when you consume it. That's the net metering we have today. Does that make sense? Within a billing cycle. Correct. Because Duke wants to make money. Yeah, Duke is off. Every utility company wants time of use because they can look at it from the utility mindset of it costs us more money and more people need more electricity at these times. It's more expensive for us to transmit electricity along the lines because everybody wants electricity at this time of the day. In the winter, it's the morning, everybody woke up, you turn on the heat, you got your coffee machine on, everything else, but that huge spike in electricity. So Duke says that's expensive for us to produce and transmit it down the lines at that hour. And then all of a sudden people shut off. They don't need as much. They go to work. So those of us who don't work at home. And now there's less of a demand. So Duke doesn't have to send as much down the transmission line. So it's cheaper for them. That's what they say.
When it's off peak.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yep, because people are using less electricity.
they want say
So we have Duke Energy Progress and Duke Energy Carolinas here. They'll both have a little bit different rate, but they'll be similar, but a little bit different. Technically. That's the idea. That's what I've heard so far. As a note, South Carolina, Duke, is already on time of use. So we've learned a lot from there. We sell into South Carolina as well. So we've learned a lot on how that makes sense. Yep. For people with solar or just in general? It depends if you have a battery or not. So here's how you get around time of use. If you have solar and you have a battery, we size your system correctly so that you are producing it much, and then we help you program your thermostats and everything else so that you're not using a lot of electricity in those peak times. In the summer, by the way, it's 6 to 9 p.m. because now you came home from work, your house is hot, you're turning on the HVAC and things like that are happening. So with all those different things going on, they change it in winter and summer seasonally. But when we do a solar analysis, we will show you, here's what we think you're going to save every month by going solar based on the rate structure you're on. We will show you most of the time, it's about 10% less savings if you're on a time of use structure, unless you have enough batteries to make up for it. So if we oversize your system and you're producing more solar than you need during the day, but you're storing it in the battery, there's no reason to send it to the grid. You're not going to get a very big credit back, right? That's going to cover your usage part. So once you're sending it off, don't send. We try to size the system so everything you produce goes into your battery, and then you use your battery at night, and you never have those rate spikes of difference. Here's the downside of that, though. Now you're using your battery to keep the kilowatt hour cost down. What happens if the power goes out and your battery has been depleted because you used it at night? So now this gets into a lot of additional conversations between you and your solar company of what's the right investment for you and the size of the system, the number of batteries, and what's the realistic expectation of what your savings is going to be. And I'll just be very honest with everybody here. That's when you want to make sure you're working with a very honest and high integrity solar company. There are a lot of companies out there nationwide and regional here as well that are not going to give you the accurate information. They want to sell you a system. They're not necessarily going to tell you, wow, you know what? Honestly, financially, this doesn't make sense for you. That's why I work for Sugar Hollow. They came to my house and told me, Scott, this doesn't make sense for you. You're going to have to remove $50,000 worth of trees in order to go solar and have a financial benefit. If anything, put in some batteries. That's literally why I work here. The other three companies all told me, yeah, this is a great idea, $110,000, but we'll call the tree guys and we'll do this. And I'm like, wait, $110,000, when is that going to pay off? Oh, well, your lifetime savings is like $40,000. I'm like, so I'm spending $70,000 as a net cost. That's not a financial decision I want to make. Now, Helene happened. I lost a lot of trees. It's getting a little bit closer now, like a lot of people, but still not quite there yet. But I just talked to a landscaper yesterday. He's looking at cutting down 6 specific trees that I can put some panels on my roof of my garage, get enough sun that it makes sense to get my battery, because my wife is just very frustrated with how often we lose power on top of that mountain. I live on Maney Branch Road. If anybody knows where that is in Weaverville, I lose power every week, at least twice. Right now, after Helene, they're still working on the power lines. Anyway, I digress. But that's the net metering change. It's a really big element of what's happening and what's coming in North Carolina. Solar transferability. Let's talk about it now so we don't later, because when we talk about leases and things like that, I'll just give it a simple answer. If somebody buys a house with solar, all of those warranties will transfer to the new owner of the home. It should be that simple. The only way that's not true is if you never activated the warranty, or you don't have a warranty, or your warranty is expired on the existing system. That also applies for lease, which we're going to talk about. But solar leasing is a whole new ball game in this market that came about because of the fact that the solar tax credits for residential went away in that OBBB thing that I don't like to talk about. But that changed the game with solar. So with that going away, you no longer get a real estate tax credit if you're a residential homeowner by going solar. So leasing came about. We embraced it, found the best lease partner out there, and we'll definitely talk about that in a little bit here. But leasing also transferable to the next homeowner with a couple stipulations that we'll talk about, because you're going to start seeing transactions in the near future that involve a leased system on a house, and you're going to want to know the answers to these questions. And again, if you forget it all, just pick up the phone and call Sugar Hollow and ask for me or any of the energy consultants, and we'll walk you through it. So what to know about assessing it? Again, you're looking at the system size, the system components, the installation date. If you're talking to an owner and they are saying, I have solar in my house, these are the questions to ask. Do you know who installed it? Do you have any original paperwork? Do you know the components? And then are you still under warranty? Do you have a service contract? Things like that. Do you own it? Did you lease it? Did you finance it? Those are things you want to know for sure in the transaction. A lot of times they don't know. A lot of times they forgot, they lost their paperwork, things like that. That can all happen. And any way that conversation goes, we can help. Now, if it was installed by somebody else and they're under warranty and you want to call them, by all means do that because they might be able to handle it for free. Whereas a lot of times we have a minimum $250 service fee, kind of like, you know, our version of a home inspection, right? We come out, we look at everything, we make sure it's working, and then we'll come back with a recommendation that says it's working, you're good, or it's not working, here's what it would take to get it working. Then we'll call the component companies, we'll get all of the stuff warranted under us, we'll work through the warranty so there's minimal cost in the transaction, and we'll do all of those different steps within our service team. Does that make sense? Okay. Purchases, loans, and leases. 3 ways to go solar. There's a fourth one. I think I added this slide at like 2 a.m. when I was thinking about this, but it didn't get in here, which is fine. We're going to talk about it anyway. Cash purchase, real simple. You paid cash for the deal. You took a tax credit if you bought it earlier. You won't anymore, and you own the system outright. You got the warranties. Everything's easy. 2 is finance. In this market, finance is very rare. We were probably 90% cash until the tax credits went away in this market, and that's not just us in the solar industry here. Nationwide financing is probably 70-80%, but that's because these big companies who have these crazy packages for financing, a $30,000 solar system becomes a $50,000 finance deal at a 2.9% interest rate. They have $20,000 of fees and stuff in there, and that's where the solar company makes their money, and they try to keep your loan payment low. Usually those are people who are really unhappy with their solar array. Those are the ones we really struggle with when they call us and say help. Because they're paying a lot of money, they didn't get what they were expecting, and they're unhappy to begin with. So to try to get them happy is a challenge, right? We don't like those. Those are the big national companies that a lot of them have gone bankrupt. Some of them are no longer here, and most of them pulled out of Asheville already. They just weren't as competitive here. The third way is a lease, which we'll definitely talk a lot about. The fourth way that's just starting is something called a prepaid lease, which is a combination of cash and a lease. So I'm going to talk about it, but we're just going to be a little careful with it. It's not fully here yet. You won't see it in a transaction yet, but it's coming. So I just want you to be aware of it in case you hear the terms. Solar leasing. So here's what happened. Tax credits went away. Most people could get a 30% tax credit in the past by going solar on their home. $30,000 system becomes, call it $20,000. Everybody's happy. They get it right off their taxes, off their taxable income, etc. So that was the discount. That really got solar to where it is today. Those tax credits in residential land went away. In commercial land, we have till the end of next year to install and still get tax credits. But on the residential side, they're gone. So what we did in the industry, not us personally, we said, okay, let's talk to some of those businesses and banks and private equity firms, and let's find them who want to own the system that's on your roof. They take the tax credits. By the way, on the commercial side, they can also get depreciation. There's an additional 10% for being domestic content. So they're monetizing 50-60% of tax incentives. They're using that money. They're paying that to the finance group. That finance group owns the system on your roof for at least 5 years. Different things we'll talk about there. So you as the homeowner get to go solar, $0 down, no money down, no hidden fees, no anything, zero money down. No installation fees, everything else. Somebody else owns the system. You see the immediate savings on your electric bill because it's still affecting your electric bill, your meter, even though you don't own the solar panels and inverters on your roof. Okay? Maintenance by law has to be included in the lease deal. So the company who owns it is required by law to maintain it and make sure it works. A lot of different lease companies out there. We've vetted all of them. We worked with Amicus, our co-op, to find the best one, which we found is called Palmetto Lightreach. That's our partner right now. They maintain the system. They give you a 90% production guarantee. So as we're building the system, if we say it's going to create 10,000 kilowatt hours in a year, and it produces 8,000, you're going to get a credit for that. That means they didn't maintain the system correctly or we didn't design it correctly. So you're going to be paid for that shortage. So there's production guarantees to really protect you as the consumer. But all of the maintenance is covered. They monitor it. It is in their best interest to make sure your system is working, or else you won't pay your bill and they'll have to pay you money back. So they're going to maintain it. Immediate savings. I don't think we've sold a single lease project that didn't have at least a 10% net savings versus their current electric bill. What happens doesn't mean that your whole electric bill just goes away. It depends, how much solar are we doing? What's the percentage offset? It's month to month. Some winter months we don't produce as much. There's a lot that goes into that. But the average annual savings is the minimum average savings is 10%. What we see is normally if you're doing solar only, you might be saving 20, 30% on your electricity cost from day one. Great thing about our program, your rate is locked in for 25 years. Most lease programs, that there's an escalation rate. Every year it goes up by 3 or 4%. So if you're paying $100 now, you're paying $103 next year, then 3% more, then 3% more, 3% more. Ours is locked in. You pay $100 a month for 25 years if you choose to keep the lease for that long. So it's a fixed savings. It's immediate savings. So as your electricity bill goes up 7-8% a year, your rate doesn't change. By years 10, 15, 20, your savings is astronomical versus what it starts out as. But we try to make sure that every deal is a savings from day one. I don't like saying, well, you're going to save money by year 5. That just doesn't feel right. So we give a lot back into these transactions. We're not trying to maximize our profit. We're trying to maximize the long-term client relationships and things like that. We want you to save money right away. So that's what these are built as. With a lease, the other company has to own it legally for 5 years. That's how they can sell the tax incentives. At year 5, you can choose to purchase the system from the lease company. And by the way, they want to sell it to you. They don't want to keep it on their books. They got all their money. They got 5 years of payments. They got all the tax equity. They sold it. They monetized it. They're whole. They're going to sell you the system. We don't have an exact number, but what the average is in the industry is about 60% of the value of what you bought it for. So now it's like you're getting the tax credit. Just you have to wait 5 years to do it. You got to make payments for 5 years. That's true. But those payments from what we calculate are usually 50 to 70% lower than if you finance that exact same solar system. So the lease financially makes sense. Again, on any transaction, we'll come out and give you all the proposals, cash, lease, finance, and let you evaluate it yourself.
So, the minimum of 5 is what we're hearing.
The lease term is 25 years. You have the option to purchase it at 5 years or anytime after. And
But what if you need roofing?
same thing as if you own solar and you need a new roof. If you need a new roof in that period of time, I'll tell you, the lease company requires that there's 10 to 15 years of usable life left on your roof when they install it. That's a requirement they take of us. So they're not going to install on a bad roof. But if you need in 10 years to take it off, you're going to work with the lease company. They're going to recommend somebody, probably us, because we're their only partner in this market right now. And they're going to say, let's calculate a number, $100 a panel, $200 a panel to remove it. They do the new roof. They would put it back on and your lease payments stay the same. There's an additional cost on the replacement. And that's a great question that leads to other topics. Yes, go ahead.
That just the panels or panels and batteries?
Absolutely, panels plus battery. Again, probably 80-90% of the leases we're doing right now are solar with a battery, even on a lease. When we first heard about these, we thought it'd be impossible financially to make it make sense with a battery. Then we got into it, and because we negotiated as a cooperative, and Palmetto Lightreach wanted to work with the whole cooperative, we absolutely know that we have nation's best pricing on leases. We as Sugar Hollow are not putting an additional adder on it. A lot of companies are. They're adding 5-10% profit for themselves. We are not. We made that choice not to do that. So we know that we are by far the best lease price in the game in this market. And the only people who compete against us are other Amicus members with this product specifically. Other questions on leasing? It's transferable. If you are in a transaction and the buyer is saying, I want to keep that solar array, all they need is a 675 credit score. They apply. There's no transfer fee. There's no additional charges or anything else like that. They become the owner of the array. They take it over. They take over the payments for the remaining term of the loan. It doesn't, or the lease rather. It doesn't restart it. Doesn't recalculate it. Sorry.
The buyer would refuse, that, you give it to me, you keep paying it, and
That's the asterisk that we're going to come back to. Absolutely true. The buyer can make the choice and say, I don't want it. Now, what do? Well, one, maybe you find a buyer who does want it. That depends on the seller, right? They might say, I don't want to do that, because what that's going to do is escalate the lease payments. And whatever they have left in lease payments, so if they paid 2 years, they've got 23 years left, they have to pay that amount. And now but you're also saying, well, but I paid $30,000 for a lease. That's kind of probably built into the cost of the home. Maybe it still makes sense. That's up to the buyer and the seller to figure out, and with you all in the middle. But it can get tricky. Absolutely. There are other things in there. There are little, terms and conditions in the agreement with Palmetto that say Palmetto might choose to purchase the panels from you, and there's a discounted amount. So it's not 30,000 now, it's 15,000. They take the panels, they reuse it on a different system. There are ways that we can do that, but now you have a home with holes in the roof, right? That we have to patch, and that's fine, but it happens. It's not ideal. Nationwide, when you're looking at leasing, it's challenging. Palmetto's a little bit easier to work with because it is transferable. Some leases are not transferable. Sale of the home immediately escalates the lease. You've got to pay it in full before you can even sell your home. That's not our product, but that's on the market, sure. So it can be complicated. This is why we're doing these conversations. And if you or any of your offices want us to come and answer more Q&A, you just call us and we'll come do a presentation with your office. We've done that with a few offices already in town, and we're happy to get more granular with you. Or if you have a transaction, call us and we can guide you through any of it. Leasing in this market is really actually pretty new. You're probably not going to see any transactions right now, but in a year, 2 years, 5 years, you'll probably start to see some that are leased systems. And yeah, that's why we're just trying to start to educate people on what that means in real estate. Other questions on lease?
Who you get for working with that one, because we've already got probably 400 houses out there that have leases on solar that are not from the same type of loan program, lease program they're talking about. Super important to know, have them help out if you don't know.
Yeah. Leasing, unfortunately, was one of those things that a lot of the lesser integrity type of companies nationwide were utilizing to sell. And they were door knockers a lot of times. They were coming, they'd sell you 10, 15, or 20 panels with or without a battery. Here's your cost. It's going to cost you this. And they would really dramatically escalate what they think your savings are going to be. And they never were truthful on that. And it's unfortunate. We deal with this all the time at Sugar Hollow. Dealing with the other people that have been in this market have changed the notion of what solar is in this market. So we're doing our best, but unfortunately there are bad actors out there. We're down to about 10 minutes. I'm going to go a little bit, but I will still talk about prepaid leases in a minute too, but how can you work with us? We do residential. We do commercial, we do new construction. We work with builders all the time. So if builders, you have somebody who wants to build a house and they want to put solar in, we'll work with the contractor. We'll work through that whole process. We'll do things like roughing it in. So all of the conduit and things are behind the wall. A lot of stuff that we do with builders if you ever get into new construction. And then the recap. So let me talk about prepaid leases real quickly before we get into this and let you guys go or ask any of the questions you might have. A prepaid lease is a combination between a cash purchase and a lease. So what that basically is you can buy your system for 75% of the value of the system. That company that's selling it to you is going to get the other 25% by selling the tax again. You don't own the system for 5 years, but you technically own it, right? You bought it, so you think, I own it, but I paid 75%, but I don't own it for 5 years, somebody else still owns it. The difference is there's no lease payment for those 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, you immediately take ownership of the system. It's not do you want to buy it out or do you want to keep the lease payments? It's you take it over. Okay. So who does this impact? This impacts people who are our traditional cash buyers, which is a lot of this market, not nationwide with solar, but in this market, we were 90% cash buyers. So we had to look at a product like this, even though it's a little bit funky on how you explain it. You're paying us 75%, you don't own it. Somebody else is going to maintain it for 5 years. Then you're going to take it over, but you kind of got the tax credits, right? It's kind of a weird sell. It's kind of a different product, but I will tell you, it's really fascinating as a solar company. And we have a lot of people who really are interested in this product. So we are in the process of rolling one out. Again, there are some bad actors with prepaid leases, and they're out there right now selling in the market today as we speak with a product that's not very high quality and has a lot of question marks around it. We are creating a lease with our cooperative amicus that we're going to be launching and offering in the very near future. But again, we're kind of controlling it as a co-op of, again, B corporations, high quality solar installers, not just trying to find some big private equity firm who wants to make money and sell the tax equity portions of this. There are products out there that are decent. And honestly, if you want to know, we'll tell you. We'll say, yeah, that product is good. That product is better than others. If you guys want to call us, I'll be happy to give you my honest take on it. But just be careful with leases. Be careful with prepaid leases. Be careful with the stuff that's out there, especially if it's not a local player who cares about this local mountain environment that we all live in. And there are companies here besides us that are really high integrity companies. But there are some who are not. So just, I would say, be careful, be cautious with that part. So quick recap. We're your local partner. Anything you need, solar, battery, storage, EV chargers. We do some of that stuff as well. We're here to help answer questions for you, for any of the agents in your offices, for your offices themselves, for builders. If you want to talk to home inspectors who are curious on this, send them my way. I'd love to talk to them on how we can help with the inspection process of the solar part that they're going to have to report on legally in that transaction, right? So all of that stuff we can help with. Send those people my way. My business cards are back there somewhere. My name will be on the next slide. You can take a picture of that as well. We have on-staff service. That's the biggest thing that impacts all of you. Unless you want solar in your house, that's a different conversation. But if you're in a transaction and you just have questions, call us. Talk to me, talk to Ivy, talk to the marketing team. They'll get you in front of the people who can answer your question the best way. And we'll eventually get our service team out there to take a look at it and really give you the full, truthful answer of what's going on with that system that you're buying or selling. Lease, very dynamic new product for solar. Right now, probably 70% of the projects we're selling are leases. Never thought I'd see that number. The other rest are still some cash deals, and then we do a lot of new construction, which are almost always cash deals. You cannot do a lease on new construction. I can do a lease on a home the second that it's sold. Here's what happens a lot of new construction. You blow your budget, right? I've done it. Everybody's probably seen it happen. You spend too much. Solar gets kicked out of the budget for your new construction home. Now you take ownership and say, boy, I really wanted solar. We can come in for free, put solar on their home, get them immediate savings. Now they buy it out in year 5. They get the tax incentives kind of. Maybe the conduit's not behind the wall, but it's not for most houses around here. And it's a really great transaction. So we work with builders more on that type of thing right now. I get it. They all want solar. Everybody wants to put solar on a house here, batteries in a house here. It doesn't always fit in the final budget number. Rate increases are coming. Net metering changes are coming. If people want to go solar, make sure they do it this year. Even if they call us December 1st and we can't install them, we can still lock in the rate structure so that they get the bridge rate. They lock it in for a long period of time and they're not stuck with time of use. Again, Duke is trying to fully answer that for us. But from what we've been told, if we have interconnection approval, which we can do very simply, it doesn't take a day. It's give us a month. We have to get, a copy of an electric bill, homeowner's insurance, things like that. We've got to have a contract in place. We submit for interconnection. It's like $500 for us to do that with Duke. They give us approval. You're locked in for that rate. And usually it's 6 months. We're waiting to see. Sometimes they change it to 9 months after approval that you have to install by to keep that rate locked before your interconnection expires. Again, a lot of words. So if you have questions, hit me up later. But all this stuff is coming. It's here. Make sure you're doing it. Go in solar now if you want to, or if you have friends who want to, send them our way. We'd love to talk to them. 2 ways to get in touch with us. hello@sugarhollowsolar.com. Or me, scott.zintz@sugarhollowsolar.com. There's my cell phone number. There's our main number. Feel free to reach out to us for anything that you need. And again, if your offices want to hear more, if you have more in-depth information, just let us know. I'm happy to come and talk with you all too.
Duke, how are the electric co-ops in our region? Are
Yeah.
they accepted to?
Good question. Yes, not lease. They're not very receptive to leases yet. And that's not necessarily the EMC, that's more the lease company. It takes a lot for a lease company to get approval through an electric co-op. So there's a time, and since these are newer right now, they're hitting the big utilities first, and then they'll start going into the electric co-ops. All the co-ops have their own rate structures. So you're not facing a big change if you're with a co-op. They probably already were time of use. Almost all the co-ops in this market are already time of use. So we've had a thing for a while. If you were with any of the co-ops, you probably needed to have a battery with your solar install. When I said we used to be 30%, 20 of those 30% were electric co-ops where you had to have a battery for solar to make sense. The other 10% were people who didn't want a generator. Now it's almost everyone, but good question. Thank you for that. Yes. Mhm. Yeah, again, it's every home is going to be different and things like that. But if I'm looking at averages, you're probably in the 10 to 12% range instead of the 5 to 10% range for total. But if solar and battery, I'm assuming, yeah. Just battery, it'd be just like a generator. Maybe a little more value than a generator because there's no maintenance. With generators, a lot of people learn this during Helene. If you hadn't been maintaining your generator, or if you didn't have oil that you're putting in it every couple of days, by day 3 and 4 of Helene, your generator was dead and you're out of luck. And you probably spent a lot of money on that generator. And there were a lot of really upset people with generators that were calling us during Helene, can you get out today and install a battery for me? And unfortunately, we had $1 million of inventory that we lost during Helene in our warehouse. That hurt, but we didn't have our inventory of 70 batteries that we had in stock that day before the hurricane hit. But anyway, we got through all that. And partially because so many people wanted a battery after the fact. I'm going to be careful with this answer. There are 2 products that we stand behind fully that we install right now. One of them is the Tesla Powerwall 3. One of them is the Franklin A2 or AS. The Franklin is a Chinese-made product, so there have been tariff issues. There's been a lot of stuff like that. Very, very high-quality product. A lot of little bells and whistles and funky stuff to it. Tesla is the bellwether in the industry. Some people don't like Elon Musk. Some people don't like Tesla. I don't blame them. I don't have a problem with that. So we have another product offering. I will tell you that the best value in the market, from my opinion, is the Tesla Powerwall 3. It's been around. It's been tested. It's a really, really, really good product. The issue we have sometimes with Tesla is an upfront issue. We install it and there was an issue. We immediately come out and we replace it. It's not no cost to you. And then the next one works perfectly. I don't know what, I think they had some bad manufacturing, probably when Elon was sending everything to Europe or was trying to do too many things at once, or maybe he was worried about SpaceX instead of the batteries. But there was a time frame in there when their batteries were we had a high failure rate. We're coming out of that right now, but the longevity of the product and the quality of the product is very, very high. And I'll tell you, my house will have a Tesla Powerwall 3 on it. And I don't like Elon. I don't like Tesla. I don't invest in his stock, but I will use his product. I even sold this car. I now have a Mercedes electric out there because that thing was not good in a car accident.
About an EV, can you use that as a battery?
I love these questions because I don't have all the answers. I love when that happens. Okay, there's a huge discussion going on right now about bidirectional charging. What I can tell you that we know today, there are certain numbers of cars that today, as we speak, can be installed bidirectional. The biggest one is the Tesla Cybertruck. If you have a Tesla Cybertruck, you can almost immediately plug it into, but you've got to have the infrastructure. The gateway is what they call it, that communicates directly with Tesla and with your electrical panel. Here's the problem. They're sold out. We cannot get them, period. You as the Cybertruck owner must buy it from Tesla. And from what we've heard, they're about 18 months out, sold out. Second one that we heard, the Tesla Model Y, the new one, not if you have an old one, the new ones will also work for bidirectional charging. The Ford Lightning, if you have a Ford Lightning, we've heard that one works for bidirectional lighting. Again, there's additional infrastructure you have to purchase. We can help install it. We are one of the approved vendors for all these things, so we can work with you on it. But you have to buy the gateway because they won't sell it to us. We have to come and install it. And certain cars and certain infrastructure actually require a battery, like a Tesla Powerwall. In order for your car to power your home, it has to go through a gateway and a battery to do it. So there's a lot of answers to that one that we don't have yet. I think in 3 years, almost every electric vehicle you buy at that point in time, you'll be able to buy the infrastructure, install it. The Tesla Powerwalls and Franklins of the world will take a sideways step to the large EV market.
don't know about how Sky did it, but I had a neighbor who had a new Ford truck that was a hybrid.
That's-
that could
oh.
be used as a generator, and he powered 3 houses in my neighborhood. I wasn't close enough. He took my food and put it in a refrigerator so it didn't all die.
That's good.
But he powered 3 houses.
If he were an electrical contractor or an electrical engineer, there are ways to do it. What I'll tell you is
Computer person.
that maybe I don't want to get into that then. I'd be curious to come and see it myself, but I know these ways are out there. It may have been a fire hazard. It probably would not have been approved for permitting.
You lived next door.
Well,
you know.
and maybe not. I mean, the answer is, this is why I say I don't know. I don't have the full answer on that. But from what we've been led to believe by these companies that are doing that, you can't get a permit to do what he was doing. So it's not technically legal. But did it work? That's great. That's great. Makes sense too. I saw a couple more hands, sir.
And our house, your car, that's the answer he's talking about. If you're, if it's a lien and you need a well pump to run.
Yeah.
I have my Kia, plug in an adapter and a 240, outlet will plug right in there like a standard outlet. And I ran a friend's pump to pump out their basement for 20 hours.
That's great.
But it's basically, it's not gonna power the whole house.
Yeah.
You can't, turn on the AC and everything. But, if you want, a freezer, power that for a while, that's a lot more accessible right now.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about installed transfer switches and all this sort of thing that's installed in the home, it's different from when we can do, plug and play situations. That is more likely what people can do. But to have an infrastructure where your whole electrical panel is what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
that's a little more challenging to do. But I think we're going that direction as industry for sure. There was another question. Direction? Oh yeah, we figure we go about 2 hours from here in any direction. We also are in the upstate, so if you're in South Carolina, we are selling and servicing in the upstate as well. Thank you. If you've got to go ahead and go. If you want to stay for more questions, go for it. I'm out of time, but for those who do have to go, thank you very much for coming. Call me or Sugar Hollow for anything.